So hopefully you love or hate HTML and CSS, or maybe have no opinion about it whatsoever. It is good just to learn to know what a tag is and the different things you can change in background color and line spacing, and that there's two different files that are involved. I wanted to go over some things that maybe just as a designer, some resources that you could use for code type of purposes. So that says fun, I should have put it in quotes, fun HTML and CSS resources. There is a website called W3 Schools, and it has, I feel like it's one of the first places you could go to get code and learn and kind of copy and paste code out of. So you can see here HTML, introductions, editors, basic elements, attributes, headings, paragraphs, styles, formatting. It tells you all the things to do in HTML. It can also tell you lots of things to do in CSS. So you'll notice that HTML has color, CSS has color. You can change the color of a web page through HTML, but you're just changing that one specific thing within that code, like that one word or that one paragraph. Where the CSS, if you change it in the CSS, you're changing more than one thing. So you might see color in HTML and say, I thought I could only do that with CSS. But it can happen in both places, because HTML existed first and there was still color on web pages. And then CSS came along and it just made it a little bit easier. So this is just something to explore if you ever need to figure out a code for something. And when that happens, it's usually when I'm working in a web design program that it's not doing exactly what I want. In WordPress, without code, what we're going to use, Weebly, Wix, those types of things, they're usually an option to get into the back end of the code. And you can tweak some things if it's not giving you the interface option to change it. And so this might be something you come back to do, or all these resources might be something you come back to kind of figure out how to tweak it to be exactly how you want it. There is a little bit of compromise when it comes to web. The screens change, photos, you can't get the photo exactly how you want it to be because it's very fluid and it's responsive. So sometimes we can tweak it, sometimes we can't. The next one is they call themselves the best online tools and resources. That's why I put self-proclaimed. I'm not saying it's the best online tool and resources, but they have HTML, tags, cheat sheets, characters, same idea. You can test it out, and then over here, it'll tell you what it looks like. JS is JavaScript. So this is actually a good site to see the difference between HTML. On this home page. So let me go back. So here, this is HTML. Same parts, right? You can make two eyes and a line and a square. You can add style to it. You can turn it into a happy face. And then now it's moving. So JavaScript is the stuff that is the code that make things move on your page. So this is a really good kind of explanation of what can happen. This is kind of fun, CSS-matic. So say you wanted to create a box. Right here you can see the code. But for us visual folks, you can round the corners, and as you do this live, you can see what you're trying to create change on screen and add a border. And most of the time you won't need this because you'll be able to do this very obviously with the program we're using. But just to more so you see an idea of how that code changes and what that looks like. So it's just kind of fun to play around with. Gradients, so if you want to create gradients, it gives you all this code down here. So you can see it's a little bit complicated. A lot of creating websites through HTML and CSS when you're first learning is a lot of copying and pasting. So some people just type all of it and can know all of it by heart, and it's like, you know, a second language to them. But when you're first starting, it's a lot of copying and pasting. So what font is a Chrome extension? So let's go to Chipotle. I don't know why. We're just gonna. And up here I have 2 extensions. So you can load extensions into Chrome, and they're like little plugins that do some magical things. So if I click on this right here, which stands for what font, I can hover over and see that this is Trade Gothic. I can click on it and I can see in the font family what font they're using and how it's written in code. I can see the weight, I can see the size, and I can see the color. So what's going to be really nice about this type of thing for you is when you first start designing websites, figuring out what point or pixel size text to use is the hardest. These screens are super big, so it's a little bit hard to design websites on this because most people that are your users are not going to have this giant of a website. So we gotta have to squish it down, see what the screen would really look like. But this gives you an idea of 24 pixels. We're also used to designing in points, so how does that translate? You can go here, this is Nunito, this is still Trade Gothic, and you'll notice so far they're only using 2 typefaces. So if you've taken type 1, we kind of talked about using variations of type, having 2 types that go together, and then you have your bold, italic, not so bold, book. All of that is how you show variation within design. It's no different than on web. So this is kind of nice. And then you'll notice these long font families. And why do they have it be so long? So one of the reasons it's so long, and you'll notice a lot of them will say, let's see what's happening. This might be weird. Let's see what's happening here. So this says source is Sans Pro, and then it says Helvetica New, and then it says Helvetica New, Helvetica Arial, Sans Serif. Why does it have that big long line? So the big long line is there is that Sans Pro is a Google font. And so I'm going to use a very serious, very serious explanation of how the internet works. There are fairies on servers, and they pick up the letters and they fly them to your computer so that it looks pretty. Now, if those fairies are too tired and they can't get the Google fonts to your computer, there's got to be a backup plan. So the backup plan is fonts that are stored on your machine. And so they're saying, I want Source Sans Pro, but a lot of people have Helvetica New. So if the fairies can't get the Source Sans Pro to the machine, then look for Helvetica New. If that doesn't exist, then look for Helvetica. And if Helvetica doesn't exist, look for Arial. And heck, if worst comes to worst, just give me a sans serif. So that's the way that the code works. I really have no idea how the internet actually works, but I can envision the fairies flying things all over to your computers. So there has to be anything that's on the web is stored somewhere else. It's on a server somewhere for people to go get and bring it back, whether it's your actual web page, if your web page is talking to another server to go get the fonts here and another server to go get more fonts here. It's like a big web, which is also, you know, why we call it the web. Another extension, this will link you to download it. And it just works with Chrome. I'm sure there are extensions for Safari and other things, but just to kind of show you options that are out there. And the next one is called Snatcher, and it snatches the CSS from sites. So if I take Chipotle and I click on icon here, it tells me all of the colors that they're using in the background at some points, all of their text colors, and all of the web is driven off these hex codes when it comes to color. The typography isn't as easy to see here. I think it's a little bit easier on that, on the what font. What you can see here though is your H1, your H2, your H3, your H4, your H5, your H6, and your body. So usually when we're designing sites, I always have a paragraph text, which means all of this type of stuff on here, it was all Nunito. You're all going to have, everything that's like a paragraph or just regular writing is going to be the same. And then you're going to have big headlines. And so the way H1, H2, H3 is supposed to work is that your largest big headline would be an H1. And then your subhead would be an H2. And maybe you have other like title areas that would be an H3. Maybe you have a button size that would be an H4. So that way when you're designing and you have all your buttons are H4. So then say you don't like the style of that, you don't have to go in every button and change it. You just go back, for us, a little window and go to H4. It'll still be called H4 with what we're using. So that's why we need to know some of the HTML and CSS, because you need to know like, oh, H4 is my 4th biggest typeface. And is there anyone saying like, oh no, H4 is 2 points bigger than H3? And they're like calling the design police? No. I mean, you could have it all wonky and have H3 be your largest, but just in normal like hierarchy of text, that's what it is. So you have like 6 options to have different size and types of text on there. And then when I have like one thing that's special or different, I usually just style that on the actual word itself. I'm not changing all this code. So those are some fun little resources to just know about. If you search extensions in Chrome there's all different kind of color pickers, and you could have a photo and pull all the colors out of it. There's just fun little apps that can make little magic things happen. All right, so I already started, that kind of leads us into, we're gonna talk about the overarching web design, like the steps in the web design process. And you might wanna have this open. I'm gonna talk about each. I'm not gonna read this line for line. I'm just gonna use it as something, as a guide for me. But I'm gonna have you can have it open and later on you can read everything that has to go with it. So the number 1 step in the web design process is just called discover. And what that means is, so someone says, hey, you can do websites. Can you make my website for me? And you say, sure. Well, now what? Because a website involves a lot of stuff, a lot of content, a lot of pictures. You have to think about a lot of things instead of someone says, hey, can you design me a flyer? You get the words and the pictures. And you have to know what size you're going to print that flyer out on. Is it 11 by 17? Is it a letter size? Web is a different story. There's more behind it. There's more psychology behind it. There's more where are people clicking behind it. There's searching the internet to find it behind it. So it's a little bit more of an in-depth process than creating, say, a flyer for someone. So the discover part, and this can be anything. When you are asked to do a web page, a lot of times you're asked to rebrand their whole company. They might not have a logo at all. They just know that they need a web page. So you have to figure out how much does your client know that they can give you. So what that is called is a creative brief. And you have to figure out how to get information from the client based off questions. So what I do is I send a link, and this is what your online assignment is going to be. It's a free program called JotForm that sends out like an online form, and it asks questions. And those questions can be anything from who's your target audience? Do you already have a logo? Do you like colors? Who are your competitors? What is the purpose of your company? What's your slogan? What's your budget? Do you have copy? And when I say copy, people aren't going to know that, so you have to figure out how to word it. copy is like the words that go on the page. Content and copy is the words. There's stuff called copyright editors who make sure all the words are good. The design of the words and the voice heard through the words is just as important as the visual design on the page. So when I do web pages, if it is in the budget, I have a copywriter who I work with, which is great because she does everything that I cannot stand. She organizes the site, she emails everybody, she gets all of the words, she hands me the words, and I just get to make it look pretty. It's really nice. Otherwise, if you're doing it alone, you kind of have to pull teeth to get the content. If any of you know me, there's no way, I have no business typing anyone's content on their site because it will have 1,000 typos. I am a very smart person, but I know where my strengths lie, and someone always has to proof anything that I do. You will notice it when you read my directions. I cannot write the word your. It will say you. The R will not exist. I will think that the R is there. I will reread it and reread it with the R there, and it's not. So you have to make sure you know where those strengths lie. And I'm very honest with clients, and I tell them that I have to copy and paste everything they want on their site. And I won't start designing until I have all of the words. And the pictures are iffy. It might be stock photography, or it might be images that they have. Or it might be something you have to set up with a photographer and create custom images. So the very first step is that discover phase. What do they have? What do they know? You can see by what they're filling out on the form how much they really know about web design and how much content they really have. So I just got a form back from somebody, and it said, what would you like? What are the main sections / pages you would like on the site? And they wrote all the normal stuff. That's telling me a huge red flag that this is going to be a huge job because they didn't know. I could ask you guys, what are some major categories that you see on every web page that you go to? Someone just yell out something.
Shop now.
Shop now. About.
Contact.
Contact. The thing about web, and it's hard for someone who likes to really think like outside of the box and make things really creative. Web is for the user, and it needs to be straightforward. So everyone is going to look for a contact button to know how to get somewhere. If you want to call it like, this is where we live, or like my crib, they're going to be like, I didn't come to this website to buy a crib. So although you're like being creative, it's not helping your user, and your bounce rate is going to be high. So this is where I'm getting a little off on a tangent, but the first step of where you create this brief and then you get the information. Then after that, you're going to make a plan. And because of something called SEO, which is search engine optimization, is people want to be able to say, best restaurant near me, and they want their restaurant to pop up on Google. Well, a couple of things. Number one, you need to tell them that they have to pay for that, that none of you are going to magically know SEO and have that happen. But what you can help do is you can help organize the site by SEO first. So what SEO is like keywords. What are people Google searching to find your site? And so there is, and this will be something that we do next week, but I'll kind of give you a key into it. It's called Answer the Public. Search engine optimization. So search engine SEO is part of apps, so it's part of social media, and it's also part of web design. There are companies who specialize it, things like Google Ads and Google Analytics, and a lot of terms that you don't necessarily have to know, but there are people you can just pay to optimize your site for searching. So the best way as a designer that you can optimize your site as searching is to design the site based off what people search. You can design the site with those keywords in the text on the page. So Google goes through and looks for all those things that are on the page. You can name your images well. If your images are named, I am so lazy. I will get stuff from Adobe Stock, and it says Adobe Stock 9711199 because I just want to see what it looks like. I'm like, oh, it looks great. I never go back, and I need to start doing it and write what it is. So let's say my husband does VO2 max testing, which is like where you wear that mask and then you run. So I'm building a site for him. I'm like, this is free, whatever. I'm just going to make this fast. I should go back to that image and write VO2 max testing.jpg. And then when the search fairies come out and they search for that, then it's another chance for VO2 max testing to come up. So this is also why people have to make decisions. Do you want to have a single page website or do you want to have a multiple page website? A single page website, what's on your home page, gives more opportunity for information for SEO. Also, another great way to improve that SEO or search engine optimization is by blogging. And blogging doesn't necessarily have to be like how it started, like kind of like blogging about my life, but it can be short informational things that kind of lead to whatever you're posting on social media. You can have a short blog, but it's ideal to link out to other things. So let's take this VO2 max testing webpage, and they found some data about if your VO2 max is here and you do sprinting at this thing, and Cal State Fullerton said in their exercise science lab, here's the data. You want to highlight Cal State Fullerton, you want to highlight exercise science, you highlight all these things out. So if you've noticed when you've looked at, when you're searching to learn things and you've looked at the copy that's written, you always see these blue underlines linking out to other things. That's trying to help their search engine optimization. So if clients are really, really picky about they want to have their stuff come up first, I tell them you should hire someone to write a blog for you. A lot of people don't know how to do that, and they don't have the time to do it, especially stuff that if you're not working with a big company and you're dealing stuff freelance side for like mom and pop, whatever, they don't have the capacity. They might have the money, they can see what their return would be to hire someone to post a blog at least once a week, and that would help them. So those are some other options out there. So I haven't decided yet. We need a theme for we're going to be designing a site that we're going to work on the design process for it. And it always takes me a while, but for some reason tacos just keep coming to my mind. So we'll see how you guys feel about it, but I feel like we need to do like a taco shop restaurant, and maybe start thinking about names of what this like taco shop could be. So I'm just going to type in tacos here. That's not tacos. And I'm going to say get questions. The suspense. All right, I'm going to enlarge this. This is pretty amazing, and if you can give this to your clients, you can wow them and said, I did all of this research, and I found out this is what people Google search the most when it comes to tacos. So this is hard to read. So it's divided into when, why, are, where, who, can, how, what, which. So the darkest color is search the most. The lightest color is less. So this says why tacos are the best. Why tacos are better than burritos. Why tacos are better than pizza. Why tacos are good. Why are tacos eaten in Mexico? When did tacos come to America? Tacos when high. Tacos when dieting. You can find some points, ideas, themes to make sure you want to include in your site. Now, maybe you don't want to put tacos when high, or suggest that to your clients unless it's like a food truck that's going to sit outside people's OC. You might, it depends on your demographics. Yeah.
What's this website?
I'll give you a link to it next week, but it's called Answer the Public. It also organizes by prepositions. To is for with what? Tacos with mince, tacos with chicken, tacos with beans, tacos with refried beans, tacos without meat, tacos without borders, tacos without tomatoes. Tacos Without Borders food truck. So Tacos Without Borders is a shop potentially. Tacos Without Carbs. So there's lots of things to give you lots of ideas. So you could give this to a client and have them, you could work with them, you could give it to them, have them highlight some of the things. Here's the like versus and. So this is all things people have Google searched. Tacos versus burritos, tacos and tequila. They got this. This is versus, but these all say and, so got a little mixed up. There's a lot of tequila on here. So maybe it would behoove us to have a tacos and tequila taco shop, because it seems like that's what the people are asking for. And then they have it alphabetically. Tacos for kids. Think about, oh, we should have a kids menu. How could we make our tacos for kids different than just smaller versions of adult tacos? So this is a pretty powerful resource. I was going crazy with it last night. It limits you at about 5 words that you can put in. And I wasted it on my husband's name, one of them. I was like, I want to see what comes up. Don't put your name in. Nothing comes up because no one's searching you. There is another site that is kind of fun, and we'll talk about it. Let me find. And we'll talk more about it next week. So slow. Back to the beginning.
That's so pretty, that design.
On the page?
No,
Yeah.
really
I was really excited when I found it. There's also, and these guys are tricky. So it's a free keyword tool. And everything is always like, start a free trial, give me all your information. I want to search taco. Let's put in restaurant. Help me spell. There we go. I am going to do food and drink. I am going to do the US. And I am going to search. So this tells me for taco restaurant, this is what people are searching. Now it says, enter your email address and email me my keywords. If you do that, they will email you a list of all, I forget how much more, 523 more keywords available. It's going to take you to a screen and it's going to say, give me all your children. Not really, but they want you to sign up for a free trial. You don't have to do it. Magically later, this little thing, it's really free. They emailed me the words, but it's like they make it look like you have to finish that to get the list, but you don't. And again, this is something that they'll do with a little bit later, but it just helps prove the point of, so you have opportunities when you're designing a web to put keywords in like the back end of stuff for searches. So tacos near me, restaurants near me, those types of things you can put in. Are other people putting it in? Yes, but there's going to be other things out of the 423 keywords that maybe your competitors didn't think of, maybe you didn't think of, maybe your client didn't think of, and you don't have the money to hire anyone to do your SEO for you. So you can kind of be a good package for a mom and pop shop trying to make these web pages and help them out a little bit. So after let's go back to where we were. Previous. So you start with SEO. After that, you create a sitemap. And a sitemap is essentially, looks like a tree map. Little boxes with lines. I can show you what that would look like. It looks like this. So here you have, let's see if it gets unblurry. Nope. Essentially, this would say like homepage. This says home, customers, pricing, enterprise, blog, lineman, sign up. All of these are your different pages. All of these are your different touch points or sections or things you want to make sure you include on that page. So when you looked at your SEO and you searched it, did you see about? No, you didn't see about, but we know we need to have an about section on our page. But we want to use the SEO to think about how we organize our page. So do we want to make sure that somewhere on our page we have a kids menu? We saw some people were searching tacos for kids. Are we going to have a link in the top of our thing if we're doing tacos and tequila? Are we going to have a link for kids? Probably not, but we want to make sure that that shows up somewhere on the page. So then we can figure out where those pieces would go. And then this is the first organization. This is good for clients. You make this for them, and then they see, oh, these are the pages and the areas I have to get content for you. So then what I do next is usually create a Google Drive or a Dropbox system that has folders, and a folder would be called Home, a folder would be called About, a folder would be called Pricing or whatever your pages are, Menu, and that's where they give me a Word document or a text document with all the words that they want. They throw it in so it's organized so that the client is thinking about where these things are going, you're thinking about where these things are going. What's nice is if they already have a web page and you're just redoing it and you get to copy and paste a lot of their text that's already on the page and then just update it, it becomes nice. So then you make a sitemap and then review content and development. That's basically that folder process. That's where you get all of the words that you need. It also says here to ask for like any brochures they might already have, business cards, things that are printable that they already have, because you either want to match the language of those printable items or provide yourself another opportunity to make more money and say, hey, let's make these printable items match the voice of the web page and the design of the web page. It's kind of a win-win. So that's all the prep behind just getting started with organization. The next step is probably the more fun step that you guys would decide, and that's design. But we're not going into maybe, for the actual web page itself, you're not going into colors and type and any of that right away. You're going into what's called wireframing. And this saves you time. And what happens here with a wireframe is, let's see if we can just make this bigger. Well, that wasn't the picture I was looking for. Go away, pop-ups. So this is what a wireframe looks like. You see a lot of gray and a lot of boxes. There's different ways to show things. You can kind of see here, header. You envision this as a picture with some words, but you're laying out the design. You don't even have, you have the headlines in there and like the section areas because you know where those would be, but you don't have all the images in, you don't have the color in. We're just focusing on the organization of the site. If you throw color in there, automatically the clients will be like, I don't like red. Well, this point of this design process has nothing to do with red, so you want to take out any opinions. No one really has an opinion about gray. Some people do these, like you can see grayscale in pink or monochromatic in other colors. I would leave all color out. Just do gray. So then we wireframe a site. What this is also helpful with is then a design plan for photos. So some sites you're doing all stock photography, which is great because then you can curate this beautiful site and you can pick out all the pictures. Sometimes you can't. You only have pictures that they have, and I like to say garbage in, garbage out. So if they give you garbagey pictures, it's going to make their site look terrible. So this can give a plan of, I would like a big hero image, that big, photo at the beginning, or that focal point to be this, and you can write out a plan of the photos that you need, and then they can see what they have. You can see how much you'll be spending on stock photography. You can see, oh, it sounds like we might need to hire a photographer to take these photos. And at that point, right now I'm doing a website for a church, and we're choosing on some color schemes. We're going to do a totally planned day of photos. It's going to be during live stuff, but what we have the pastor wear is for sure going to match our color scheme. And the way the lighting is that day is going to be the easiest to alter the photos. So having this wireframe allows us to be like, we need this, 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 and this. This is what you're going to wear, because it's so much easier to design a site where the photos match. It just looks so much cleaner and so much professional. So it's just something that you as a designer can have more control over than you thought, which can be kind of fun. So then we wireframe, you get approval from that, and then you start developing the site. So at the same time, let's say at the same time, though, they ask you to rebrand. So they may already come to you with, these are our colors. You might be like choosing some typefaces. You might have the logo. You might be creating the logo. You might be redesigning the logo. We are going to take this as if we are designing it. I guess I have decided we're doing tacos and tequila without even knowing it. We'll come up with a clever name, and we'll create what's called a stylescape. And it is, if you have because I'm here, I have access to a big printer, which is kind of fun, but it's 10.5 inches by 54 inches, and it's this big, long thing that you can take into clients and you can roll out. And what it has is their logo, their colors, a few images. It's like a mood board on crack. And then you show kind of like that above the fold, that word that guy talked about, just that your home screen, whatever's in this rectangle, you kind of mock up what the web page could look like that. And then within that, you're automatically getting what your headlines would look like and your typography would look like. I usually do either a tablet and a phone with the big desktop. I have the two, and then you just have one other like fun image that you create. So then you give them a couple of options, 2 to 3 options of what they want to choose from. So if you are rebranding, while you're doing the wireframing and that, you've kind of already decided on some colors, and you've decided on some design choices there as well. So those kind of work simultaneously. And then the developing part is the fun part. It says, here's where it's translated to actual code or built on a content management system. We will be doing a content management system. It's called Without Code. And this is where if you create a wireframe, so a wireframe will first do in Illustrator, and then we'll do it in Without Code as well. So you can kind of do, it's a long story, but you will have an access to the same wireframe in Without Code. And then once you have those bare bones, you just fill in the images and the text. So your flow is pretty quick to get that done. Then you send that off to the client. Before you do that, you probably want to user test it. There are companies you can pay to send off your site, and they will user test it for you to show you broken links. Did you think about this? You're missing this information, which sometimes, depending on how big the client is, it's worth doing. And then you show it to the people. They test it out. You make any adjustments you need to, and then you launch it, which is basically how do you get them a URL and how do you make it go live so that the tree fairies have something to work with. So those are kind of the steps. So we will take our restaurant, our taco restaurant, and we will go through this process for it. But what you're going to do first, so the first thing is that discover. Yeah.
What are we designing the website on?
It's called WOCODE, WOCODE, Without Code.
Is that like oh, okay, gotcha.
It's like WordPress
it's
or
like
Wix or...
Okay, is it like GoDaddy kind of? Like
No, so GoDaddy is GoDaddy you can create a website on.
Yeah.
GoDaddy pays for hosting. So GoDaddy, you can buy your URL there, and you can pay for your website to be hosted there. Mm-hmm. They also have free, pretty minimal, you can make a website through some software that they have as well. This company hosts the site for you. They use Amazon servers, and it's just their interface on how to design the site, which is a little bit better for designers. You still have to buy a URL somewhere else.
But you don't have to pay like a monthly subscription?
No. So you, on a free account, you can have 5 websites that you're working on. And so that's why I like to use this in class. And then you can get a preview link, so I can show you what those preview links would look like.
Just Dreamweaver, we will never do that.
No. Dreamweaver, there's no way to get the website. You have to pay to get it up.
Oh.
So you'd have to, if you built a site on Dreamweaver, you'd have to do something called FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol. You would have to pay for hosting on Dreamweaver. You'd have to transfer all your files on the back end through that. And that would cost you like $200 a year. So let's go to the studio. So can you remind me your question? I was going to show you how this parts of this, but I don't remember what part I was going to show you.
I guess I was just asking.
Oh, you were going to show us a preview.
Oh,
the preview link. Yes. So when you're designing something, which is nice for a client, is this is a preview link that you get without having to pay for anything. So you can start building the site and designing it, and you send this off to the client, and then they can see, this is what it looked like on a desktop. Here's what it looks like on a tablet. Here's what it looks like on a mobile device, even so much as an iPhone and an Android. What it looks like flipped. What?
What's that website?
It's called WoCode. We'll get into it. This is what we're going to be designing on. We're going to do stuff in Illustrator to do flat mock-ups, but then when we start creating live web pages, we're going to be designing in here. So it's great because you can do so many things without having to pay for anything yet. And I feel like they'll keep it that way. Hopefully it doesn't change. To have unlimited sites, I think I paid $50 for the year, and then you have access to more templates to use as well. So if
they have like templates too?
They do. So when we start designing, when I start learning any new program, I start with a template. And what's nice about this stuff too is they offer wireframe templates also. I will have you go through the process of building one of these wireframes yourself so that you can learn how. I'm actually going to have you copy one of these so you're looking at size and scale. And then when we go into without code, you'll have access to this same template, and then you'll be altering it for your types and color and design and all of that. So all of your designs that you make will be similar but different. You're each going to have a chance to make your own logo. You're each going to have a chance to make your own color scheme. But how are we going to know what kind of logo to make or what kind of color scheme to make? Well, we got to create a creative brief. It could be called a design brief, but a lot of times it's a creative brief. So what's going to be fun is you're going to create this form, and then you're going to partner up with someone, and they're going to pretend like they're the boss, and they're going to fill it out for you, and you're going to fill it out for them, and they got to design based off the questions that you answer, if that kind of makes sense. Because it's hard to just design for yourself. We need you to have a client. So your demographic for a shop, someone might get that your demographic is like people who make 50 to 100. We just got a logo in the studio so the studio is like the online graphic design student firm here. And their creative brief told us that their company is going for people who make $50,000 to $150,000 a year. We all got a little bit offended because we wanted to be involved in their in their brand. But if you have like a shop or a restaurant that your demographic sits there versus like $3 or dollar menu tacos, your website's going to feel very different. So although we're creating for the same brand, how people fill out the creative brief is going to tell you how to design it. But I need you to learn how to fill out a creative brief so that that's something that you have in your back pocket to do as part of this process. So I found this thing that's called 65 questions to ask at your next client meeting. Do you want to have 65 questions on something for your client to answer? No. Do you want to read 65 questions? No. So and everyone's creative brief is going to look a little bit different. You can go through these questions and come up with some on your own, But in short, what does your organization do? Who's your organization's target market? Is this new site or is this a redesign of an existing site? You're going to go through all these questions and pull out the ones you think that you want to know the answers to. And also think about, does my client even know the answer to this, or is this something that's going to come out later? So you're going to come up with a form. So I will show you a form that is used for branding. This is a different, we're going to use something called JOT form, which is free. Let me find, Typeform is something that I use. It's a little bit more fancy, but it costs money. So we don't need to pay for that at this point. And it's a little bit more interactive, but I will just show you a sample of, this is not for a web page. This is just for branding. Close. And it asks questions like, we'll ask you about your business, your brand, your target market, this project, and finally about you. Are you ready? You say yes. And then which industry does your business lie in? You can give people options to click, or you can make them fill it out. Tell us about your main turning points in the history of your business. Who are your main competitors? And to finish this section, what sets your business apart from the competition? So this type of form is very conversational. It's not like just like, who are you? What's your name? It says, and to finish this section. So you can create how playful and conversational you want to make this form. Let's move on to your brand. What are you branding? A company, a product, a service? What's your brand name? Where can we find your website if you have one? Could you share your brand mission? Is your brand, if your brand were a person, how would you describe them? Which of the following designs would best suit your brand? Pick out some colors that you like. Font styles, do you like something classic, serif, rounded? It shows examples, so if they don't know what serif means. Thanks, that's helpful. You're about halfway through. It's nice to tell them that they're close to finishing. Tell us about your target market. What's your average household income for the target market? How do people find out about your brand? What type of marketing are you going to do? Now some questions. What's your budget for this project? So what's nice about this is someone's like, oh, I want to hire you to do this. And you don't have to have that awkward conversation of like, oh, how much do you charge? And it's your friend and you're like, $5? You can change this. You can change your form. You can have different forms and you can change this. But if here it says $3,000 or less, oh, they know what they're getting into. So then maybe they don't send the form off, or they say, it's a nice way to actually be confident about giving your prices and not having to have something feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then which services are you most interested in? This is past. So this was started to just create someone's logo and their branding. And then they need brand design. They might want web design, app development, illustration, merchandising, packaging. What's your overall objectives for this project? What's your deadline in mind? We're almost done. Now about you. What's your first name, last name? Where do you live? And what's your email address? And finally, could we grab your phone number? So notice how most forms are like name, da-da-da-da-da-da. This did it at the end. I'm sure there's some psychology around it. I found all these questions from other resources. So just how you did. I have seen creative briefs. I could never create this from scratch in my brain. So you can research creative briefs there. So what you're going to end up using, I gave you these questions, but there's a lot more out there. First, I said you want to think about what do you need to know and what is easy for the client to answer. I feel that particular client thing is long, but it's everything that I want to know. So I wouldn't make it any longer. So this one that we're going to use called Jot Form, you do have to create an account. I am going to log in up here. And I have forms on here. And you're going to create a form. I've reached my limit for my free limit. It's going to give you, so now I just have to create another account. I have like 35 different Gmail accounts so that I can just keep making free things places, especially for demoing purposes in class. It's going to give you two boxes. And it's going to say, do you want your form to, let's see if I can show this. Let's do more. Let's view the form. So this is a card style. Oh, these colors are terrible. This is a card style where you like click and you go, it shows you one question at a time. There's also a classic style where you scroll to see, let's see, view form, where you can just scroll. Both have their pluses and minuses.
That's the classic.
This is the classic. Sometimes it's good to just have them focus on one thing and not really know how long their form is. Some people need to see what they're doing before they'll get started. So it's totally up to you how you want to design it. And then I'll go back to this. Let's go to edit form. You're going to end up on a page that looks like this. This little form designer is going to give you color schemes, or you can create custom color schemes for what you want and then save as a theme. And then this is where you add questions. So like, let's put in full name. They're going to ask, we're going to ask first and last name. So let's say you don't want it to be first and last name. You just want it to be a name. You can click on properties and play around with what's here. So I think on this, there's ways to delete this, but you can change what the prompt says on the bottom. You can, see, you can't see what I wrote, but I misspelled it. You can have it so that there is words in here that guide people of what they should be filling in that you've seen. There's date pickers, your address, your email, a short text entry is going to be, let's get in there. So you type in the question and then this is where they're going to answer. So you're going to have a lot of paragraphs where they're entering things, but anytime you can give someone, you know, multiple choice where they have options to just click quickly, go through and do that. And so by the end, you'll have these questions and then you can go to preview the form to see what it would look like. And you can tag questions so this is the card view. You can tag questions if you want it to be required. What's hard in the card view is that they can't move on. And so what happens in the classic view, it can be required, but they can still see the other questions that they have to fill out. Maybe they just feel like filling out the other ones and then going back to that one later. And then they can hit submit, and then you can set up, based off the email and stuff for your for your account that you set up, you're going to get an email coming to you with the answers. And that's where you click on these settings too. So this is like, where do you want your emails to go? You can integrate with third parties. So if you want, I have a messaging system called Slack, and I like that form to pop right up on Slack when I know someone submitted it, because I have, what did I talk about, my 900 email accounts that I might not check, and then I'm making sure that that's getting to me on another app. And so this is going to coremarydesign@gmail, which is an email I don't even use anymore, so that's why I integrate with my third parties. But that's nothing that you need to know at this point. It's just something that you could know for the future. What I need from you is you click publish, and this is going to be a link where your form is. This is what you end up sending to people in an email. You can say, please fill out this form and highlight the word form and link it. They don't need to see like form.form.com 2000000, because they'll kind of be like, well, what's that about? Or they might not care. So that will be your assignment, and you can get started signing up on that job form and making sure that you're ready to go before you leave me today. I'm going to pause this very long recording.